I first met Sho-Ping as an undergraduate. We were both undergraduates in the School of Architecture at Princeton. It was a really interesting time. It was, in many ways, a very difficult time because the school had just started to accept women a few years before that, and I think people were still grappling with the implications of that, and certainly the School of Architecture was. And it's interesting, I think of it now, and I think it was really sort of a microcosm of the world that we were about to enter. She was so authentic, and the ability to draw on that kind of authenticity, to draw on your humanity, as Sho-Ping did, is what makes a really great architect. She was a great architect.
She definitely had very strong people skill.
Yeah.
She just feel like she has a magnetic field around her somehow.
Yep.
She can pull the people together and connect people and get to know you in a very different level.
She was a very strong person, and she knew exactly what she had done, but she was also very humble, and I think that her humility is one of the things that is such a special thing about her.
She was spontaneous, she was self-deprecating, and she sort of acknowledged her failings in a way that I think is one of the things that was just so endearing about her.
She owned everything she did. She made a mistake, she owned it. She did a fantastic thing. Well, she probably wouldn't own it, she would pass it on to others, so I'll take that one back. My first year out of school, I thought it was fantastic that there was this young woman with all this outgoing personality that was basically running all the design in the office. I thought that was A, fantastic, and B, probably fairly normal relative to life working in architecture firms in Boston, which I came to find out over the years of practice, that is not the case. That it was a unique experience to have a woman design professional leading design in an office.
She really helped rejuvenate our healthcare practice in the firm. It had been in a period of fairly continuous decline for almost a decade, and really helped build us up from doing some very small healthcare projects to some major hospital projects. And so some of the highlights of her career would really be projects that we've really recently finished in the last 4 or 5 years.
Sho-Ping ended up working on the St. Boniface Hospital. They initially had started off with the project going in a different direction, and because of the amount of money and because of the design, things weren't really working out very well. And so she was asked to step in and help out. She designed and they built a beautiful building for pennies compared to what it otherwise would cost. And she just loved what she was doing, and she cared enough to really figure out the right way to do things.
She would always want to just help and be there for you and say, come sit down. None of us can walk by her desk without thinking of what's missing.
She was, a mentor, a colleague, as well as a really close friend to all of us. Sho-Ping and I worked closely on the HEMONC outpatient clinic. She kind of gave me the reins, even though I was still very young in the firm, and just giving me that sense of ownership. That was really, really good quality.
She was never fearful of being told no. And that's something that I think I try to remember, is that when you feel really passionate about something that's happening, even if it's never too late, always ask. Never fear asking the question.
She could be tenacious when she formed an opinion in a way that didn't lose her kindness, but never gave up her power. And that is a rare find.
She was the one who just sort of saw through it. She was not impatient, but really clear about where she wanted a conversation to go and the points she wanted made there. So she was clear, she was concise, she was fun, and everybody liked her. And she delivered even little bits of criticism in a way that were about the issue, not about the person. So she had friends everywhere she went.
She used to have these kind of candies at her desk, and they would be odd. And so I would go over and I would eat. And I would go over and I would always say, oh, that's really interesting. Sometimes I'd almost have to spit them out afterwards because they were horrendous. It got to a game a little bit where these are getting more exotic and they're getting weirder and weirder. And she's like, try this one. And it tastes like petroleum, right? And I'm like, this is just wonderful, Sho-Ping. And I'd walk away and desperately try to smile. And you knew that she knew. And those kinds of things you can't replicate, right? Yeah. Nobody knows how to quite do that. And so there's that is absolutely a loss that you just feel.
She'd had a discussion with the BSA about forming a group for women's principals. And I thought, wow, what a great idea. What a fabulous idea.
Something that's not, women in architecture, women in design. It was really about leadership, and it was really about bringing women forward and being a support.
Sho-Ping was like, I need some company, and I don't have it around the table, so I need to understand what my peers are going through, and so I know that was one of the drivers.
We talked about how our business is organized, how did you advocate for future leadership, we talked about design, but let's talk about the issues that we cared about as architects. And what I remember from that meeting was none of us really knew each other, and Sho-Ping said, how is it we're all, like, how long have we each worked in our firm, how is it that we've been so busy working in our firms and we don't even know each other.
Her conversations with me early on were about my obligations as a non-architect who works with architects all the time to expand the conversation.
There was a sort of openness to the dialogue, and I think that was what I took from Sho-Ping was she led by asking really good questions. She didn't lead with ego, she led with curiosity.
The trust of everybody to share the information that was shared was pretty heartening, honestly. And then it was to the organization of, we'll have a meeting about this topic and we'll have a meeting about that topic. And it became more organized.
Maybe we had met for a year and a half or something, and the convention was coming to Boston. And then I don't even remember how it happened, but I think we said we've had some really great discussions. Shouldn't we do something at convention when it's in our city? How do we form that?
I think two things were happening. One was that word was getting out about our group. Also, I think a lot of people began to want to be part of that, and some of those people weren't in the Boston area. And Sho-Ping, as she always did, thought, how do you connect people? And so our conversation, if we were having it, certainly was a conversation that was regional and national and beyond. And I think that's what led to her thinking we had an obligation to expand that conversation.
It's so interesting too that it allowed Boston principals to support it, but in another city, that we sort of exported ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's so like Sho-Ping, just constantly to be from somewhere and moving somewhere else, right? And taking all of her cultural awareness to another place and sort of inserting it there.
And so it's gotten to this scale that it's about women's leadership. It really isn't about sort of position in a firm. It's much, much larger than that, which I think is so exciting. I'm laughing because I remember after one meeting, she was laughing and she said, well, we're having our principal retreat to talk about promotions and I'm ready for a fight. And so I was like, really? I wouldn't use that word necessarily so comfortably, but she was kind of preparing herself for making her point.
One never says at the end, wow, I wish I worked more. And we all can look around at, how hard we've all worked. So I wanted David and Poole to know how well Sho-Ping had spent her time when she wasn't with them, and talked a lot about what she had done and the influence that she had on so many people.